Hello, how's everyone? We'll start in 2 minutes. Cool. For those that wants to speak out, just feel free. Thanks for coming on to this session. It's very much a I would like to call it very much an informal session where I want to encourage everyone to participate where possible. So for the purpose of this session, I'm going to be running through a few pointers around hackathons and coming up with general ideas. I'm also going to go through a bit about the exciting hackathon event that you guys will be participating in and some of the themes that will be coming. After that, ideation, a bit of ideation, a bit about prototyping, and finally towards the end, I really want to give it back to all of you guys for any questions and also thoughts and tips that you wanted to share with everyone else that you may find useful as well. So without further ado, let me start. Without further ado, let me start. So thank you for coming on, everyone. My name is Jack, and how do I make it into a slideshow? So my name is Jack, and this is a bit about me. I'm a software developer by trade, founded quite a few startups. I'm super into startups, so I've participated in more than 10, much more now, and got first place in quite a few. I've organized, judged, and mentored hackathons, and I'm also the CTO of Hackmakers. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn as well. This is my LinkedIn URL. You can just search for my name, which is Jack Shi. So first of all, in terms of themes and challenges for this particular hackathon, if we go into the Formula AI Hackathon URL, we can see down the bottom here in the middle of the page there, the hackathon will be broken up into 3 different themes. One is to do with data analytics. The second one is to do with augmented reality. And the third one is to do with modeling. The section that I'm going to be covering, and as of last week, we've also released some additional details about some pre-hackathon event challenges. You can find this by going to resources, challenge resources, and there's this document called pre-competition challenge details. Obviously, you would have to have signed up to the site already as a participant. And if you go into this page, it also talks about, in a bit more detail, about what some of the challenges could be. We'll also be releasing a bit more information, including data sets, on the day of the challenge. So the very first challenge is about data analytics, and that is very much to do with how to make sense of the data and what data you want to actually extract to make sense of it all. And so maybe it's not possible to analyze everything, so that we need to focus on one particular point of the data. And what is that point we want to find? And what is the problem that the solution or your solution will solve? The second challenge will be around augmented reality. So it's around, think about any event that generates three-dimensional data, how these can be translated into impressive replays, whether it's for esports, live action and such. So it's about how to actually look at data in a more of a augmented reality way. We already have a working app, and you may need to do certain things on top of that. And finally, the third one, it's to do with 3D modeling and building something cool and amazing for the metaverse. So those are just 3 hackathons, 3 challenges, 3 themes, 3 challenges in a nutshell. You can definitely look it up for more information here and also on the Formula AI page. Now, with those challenges in mind, data analytics, augmented reality, I wanted to talk to you guys about the ideation phase, which is the phase that happens at the beginning of a hackathon. And it doesn't matter which hackathon you are, so the general concepts still apply. To think about hackathons, and it's important first to define how I think about hackathons, right? Like, what is it we're trying to achieve? And what is it that we're trying to achieve? Cool. So how I think of hackathons is it's a problem and a solution, an opportunity to build something useful to make the world a better place. I'm someone that's very value-oriented. So as a software developer, I want to make sure that whatever I build has value. And for it to have value, I need to know that it solves a particular problem. It's also a good beginning of a startup. Some of these companies, which you may or may not have heard of, were all founded out of hackathons. Why is this whole concept about ideation so important? And the motivations behind it. The reason why it's important is because the idea, it gives you direction. It's a thing that will give you and the whole team a direction on where you want to go to, where you want to walk towards, and where you want to get to by the end of the hackathon. So it helps keep focus. It doesn't help if you have one teammate doing one thing, another teammate doing a slightly different thing, or trying to go towards similar but different goals. It's very important. With limited time, everyone works together. What judges look for in an idea? This is very important because from day one of the hackathon, from coming up with the idea, we need to start thinking about what is the end goal and what is the things that judges would actually evaluate our hackathons are. So things include, things we look for include the problem or the challenge that we've given. Does the solution actually tackle the challenge that we have given? Is it related to the hackathon theme? If it's a really good solution, but for something completely different to the hackathon theme, then it's the right solution for a different challenge. Who is facing the problem? And how big is the problem? So if the problem is only faced by maybe one person, right, then it's not a very big problem. If it's a problem that is faced by 50 people, but it's a problem that people can get away with easily by doing something else, then it may not be a problem that people value too much. So how big and how valuable the problem is. Also make sure that the problem that is thought of is validated. So often when we come up with a problem, we think, oh, this is like a really, really important problem. But without much research, maybe there's already a solution on the market that we're just unaware of. Or it's a problem we think is a problem, but it's not really a problem for the actual persona or the actual person. Finally, what judges look for in the solution is, does the solution tackle most of the problem, or does it only tackle a bit of the problem? And is the solution feasible? Say, for example, if we're to tackle maybe food shortages, one of the solutions could be make the whole earth farmable land. Maybe the idea is not so feasible because it requires a huge amount of capital, and what happens to all the forests and other things. So is it feasible? Are there similar solutions that already solve the problem? What is the unique factor of the idea which maybe other competitors doesn't have? What is unique to your particular solution? Really start thinking about those things. Next, I'll talk about the process of ideation. So just then, I've given all of you guys a big picture of what the motivations behind having a good idea, and what are certain things that judges look for. So now I'm going to talk about how to go about ideating. What are some of the processes and common methodologies people use, UI UX experts use to come up with ideas to problems. And also in particular to this hackathon. So in regards to hackathons, the first thing to come up with an idea is you need to know your team. If you have a really good idea on something, but your team is not interested in that particular idea, then great, maybe you need to find a different team. Or if you decide to stick with the current team, you need to actually get everyone talking and find out what everyone is passionate about. So getting to know and define your team and defining their passion is super important. Because if someone is passionate about, say, sustainability, right? There's no point getting them to do something that is not sustainable because it's not in their passion. But if everyone is passionate about sustainability and all of you guys come up with a problem that tackles sustainability, everyone will be motivated, will be passionate because it's what they want to do. So work out what the passion is. This will form the center point of your idea. If the team is not passionate about something, no matter how good the idea is, they won't be interested. And maybe later on down the 4 or 5 day hackathon track, something goes wrong. And if they're not passionate, they won't put in as much. The second thing, the next I want to cover is the process of design thinking. For some of you that's actually done UI UX, you would be familiar with this process. It's a common process used in the industry for coming up with ideas and for user research. In terms of design thinking, the first step is synthesize, understand what the audience is going through. Then it's actually defining who the audiences are. what are their pain points, and then finally it's ideating and then prototyping. So let's start with emphasis. So for emphasis, we try and seek to understand in a non-judgmental way what the hackathon challenge is. Nothing worse than giving an excellent answer to a wrong question. So spend some time, understand what exactly is the challenge and what you're building for. Understand the big picture of the particular space. Say, for example, say in the case of this hackathon, it's to do with the Formula AI space. And say if it's theme 1, it's to do with weather. So really understand, it would help before the hackathon to understand what is it like being in a Formula 1 AI race? What are some of the weather conditions? They're all things that all of us can do some pre-reading on to gain some big picture knowledge of what is the common concepts and challenges. If you go into a hackathon without understanding the big picture of that particular industry, we call them domain experts, right? Then it's very hard to relate and come up with a useful idea. Research your problem, find out as much things as you can about it. Say if it's the 3D metaverse, the 3D virtual space. Have a rough understanding of what the current industry trends are, what are some of the challenges, and maybe through your research, you might already have an idea of some of the pain points that are common in this particular space that everyone is trying to solve. The next step is defining. So after understanding this big picture space, you want to be able to start to narrow in a little bit on what the problem is. So select the problem. There's a lot of problems, select a few. And this can be done by voting. So all of you in a team, which problems is everyone most passionate about? It helps to define a persona. And when I say a persona, say for example, if you're building an app to help university students with finding out where their classes are, right? Then the persona here would be the university student, because they're the people or the stakeholders that actually have problem finding out where their classes are. So try to imagine who they are, what their personality is like. When they use, are they more sort of a mobile user? Are they more of a desktop user? When they're in that situation, maybe it makes more sense for it to be a mobile app. Start thinking about things in their shoes. Or maybe it's not a problem because they just follow their friends to class and they don't need to know where their classes are. So really defining the persona, define what their pain points are. What is something that they can do without? And collect evidence if you can. Definitely extra brownie points if people actually go out and maybe do a survey and understand, hey, this is actually an actual problem that people face. Then after we have understand the bigger picture of the industry, we've defined the problem that we want to tackle and also the user persona. We want to start ideating on what is the solution or what could be some of the possible solution. And there's no better way to do this through a diverge and converge tactic that I use. So brainstorm as much as you can on possible ideas for the problem. Don't be constrained. It can be the most craziest idea or the most stupidest idea, but sometimes the most craziest and stupid idea are very close to some of the best idea. A good example is sticky notes. So the company that originally created sticky notes set out to create a glue, a super strong glue. But what they came up with is a sticky note glue, which You can stick onto something, you can peel off, you can stick onto something again. And with that, they came up with the sticky note that we all love and use. So brainstorm as much as you can. The second step is where we start to converge. Sorry, if everyone can go on mute, that would be great. All right. The second step is converge. So after we have hundreds of different solutions, some of the craziest solutions to the problem, we start trying to narrow in on which solution should we work on. So first of all, we can start to group ideas. Maybe certain ideas are grouped into maybe the pricing category. It's about saving costs. Certain ideas are grouped into the convenience category and other things. You can work out quite a few groups easily just by reading each of the different sticky notes and ideas. Prioritize them on you can prioritize them on matrices such as this idea is great. Is it feasible? What is the impact and interest to the team on this particular idea? Also try and look for competitors if it's already done or not, or if it's something that's unique. Really start thinking about what makes this idea unique. If it's something that everyone is doing, then it's not really unique. Validate the assumptions in the idea, and also validate with personas where possible, maybe say surveys, as mentioned before. So really, in terms of a graph, it's you diverge, you get a lot of ideas, and then you converge and you narrow in on the ideas. These are some things I wanted to share. Certain things I use for validation. So this is the startup machine. It's a good way to validate on certain ideas. You have a hypothesis, and then you have a solution, and then you work out what are your core assumptions, and then see if these assumptions are valid. And if they're valid, then we actually have a problem. Then we can continue on with the idea. This is also quite a good tool that I use for online collaboration, for ideation brainstorming. It's called Miro. You can Miro.com. You can sign up. It's free. It's free to use in the beginning with a number of boards. So it's definitely a good way to collaborate. This is a industry well-known canvas called Lean Canvas. It's also quite useful for understanding what your business proposition is. So defining a problem, defining a solution. How do we measure whether this solution works? What are the key value propositions? What is my unfair advantage? And what are the customer segments? Channel, cost structure, and revenue stream. I would say probably keep it light for now because this is more of a tech hackathon as opposed to a business hackathon. Cool. That's the main things about ideation. And just one more piece about prototyping, and then I'll hand it over to everyone to share things. So after coming up with the idea, after coming up with a problem, after coming up with a solution, now it's time to build it, to prototype it. And there's a few key things that I would like all of you guys to take away and think about before you prototype. It's very important because the first thing with prototyping is understand the what and the timings. So there's no worse way than coming up with an excellent solution, but then towards the end of the hackathon, the prototype is not ready, or there is nothing to show. And so that without actually showing any prototypes, the best you can do, you can still show like slides and ideas and all that. So if some of the key points is a prototype, then obviously you would not do as good as you originally expected to do. So really understand really understand the prototype. What is the prototype that you need to have to show the idea works? And why I'm saying this is because sometimes it's not possible to build the whole project. If it's like a big solution, it's not possible to build everything. For example, if it's an AI that tracks your sleep patterns, right? Then there's no point building, and you have very limited time. There's no point building an app that just does log in, log out, or there's no point that just builds an app that just detects the phone vibrations or sound, right? But you want to build the core of it, which is to show that, hey, this sleep activity monitor actually works. And that's by, say, for example, having an AI that the core of it, which is having an AI that takes in a whole bunch of sleeping information and trying to make sense of it all. Because everything else, investors, they know they can just pay anyone some money, and it's a no-brainer to build something that just listens in on sound or that just logs in and logs out. So really understand what is it that you want to show and what is that core thing. If nothing else works but this works, then it reduces the greatest risk. So focus on reducing the greatest risk, right? If this piece works, let's take a car, for example, right? So if you have a car, right, the most important piece would be the engine. If the engine doesn't work and all the other components work, there's no point, because you still can't drive the car. So work out what is that centerpiece. After understanding the what, also understand the timing. This is roughly how long does it take to build a prototype, and start planning from day one on day two. You don't want to be rushing the last minute and all of a sudden something doesn't work, as it usually does in the last minute. Everything just breaks. Yeah, plan from day one. Okay, how long does it take to build a prototype? And try and scope it so that it makes sense. Don't try and put everything in, because chances are you can't build everything. Second piece, start thinking. I'll have a separate presentation on presentation on Thursday, about presentation on Thursday. But in terms of prototype, in terms of ideation, start thinking about also from day one, day two, what is it that you want to demo and show the prototype? How are you going to show the prototype? How are you going to demo it to users that it works? So really start thinking about that, jotting down points. Maybe there's certain things in the prototype you may need to tweak a little bit just to show the judges it's amazing, because oftentimes when assessing different hackathons, judges can't actually go into the code and go, oh, this is amazing. They will be looking at the videos and other things to show that, oh, this works, because there's a lot of submissions. So really start thinking about how you're going to show it. And you also need to be able to show that it works, obviously. That is all from me. The following slides are more, what I want to do is more of a question and answer for you guys to me. Any sharing sessions, any lesson learned, any sharing sessions. I'm sure there's a lot of you that's been in hackathons before, and I'm sure there'll be valuable lessons that you're interested to share with everyone. So that'll be this section, and then after that I'll go into summary. So let's I'll stop sharing, and I want to open up to the team, and I'm also going to stop recording.